Welcome to the United States of America podcast. Hey, everybody. I am Neethi Bali. I'm your host, and we're broadcasting live from the Food Church here in North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We're people at peace, and we have declared peace to all people around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel. We're shining a light on knowledge that's being hidden from you, and we are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section, so be kind and self govern. And if you have any questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on air today, whoa, with Hudson Roberts, who's the coordinator on Idaho, and all of my technology is going a little bit nuts. Anyway, Hudson, welcome. You're also the host of the Living Man podcast, which I hope people are tuning into. It's offering some fantastic education. And I apologize, everybody. I really had a very serious bronchial attack at the end of June, and I'm still kind of recovering from it. I still feel a little bit slow from that. And so I hope you guys will give me some grace. But welcome, Hudson. Thank you for joining me today for this really wonderful special edition podcast that we
Yeah,
have.
thanks for having me on. I was very excited to talk about it. Obviously, we have some good things to dive into today.
Yeah, I think that, okay, guys. So we Americans are in the midst of proposing some new public laws. And this has brought on a lot of thought provoking, um, you know, conversation amongst the Americans. And we're getting ready to have elections to pass some of these public laws. And so that's created a lot of confusion amongst some people, a little bit of chaos. And so we've had some, discussion, some debate, and that's always welcome. It's always wonderful for us to, as living men and women, get together and have robust debate about anything, if especially when we're getting ready to pass some type of a law. And so, Hudson, you called me the other day. You want to tell everybody about our phone call?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. So a little bit of background. One of the laws that is being proposed, I believe, Needy, we're probably going to read it here in a second, but one of them has to do with using the word unincorporated in all DBAs. And I had some questions about it. It didn't quite make sense to me. I was worried about its application. And so I had, previous to calling you, brought it up on a coordinator call with Anna and had asked some questions. And she explained that she didn't think I was quite getting it. And there's a lot of questions I still had. Some of my questions were answered, but I ended up talking to one of the other coordinators on Idaho, our justice, our chairman, and my questions seemed to just keep getting more and more. Like I was even like just being kept up at night sometimes, being like, wait, like that doesn't make sense to me. This has to be discussed. This is worrying me. And so I ended up calling Needy because we're friends, and I know she's close with Anna, and she has a lot more education and experience than I do, especially in business, which is what this one applies to. So I give her a call and we talked for, I don't know, maybe almost 2 hours. It was a long conversation, but it was worth it because I had a lot of my questions, a lot of my concerns answered by the end of it. And most of the conversation was like, we were really having to hash some stuff out before I even started to comprehend what was being said, and it was valuable enough. And this specific law has been questioned enough by a lot of the different Americans to the point that we thought it was going to be valuable to have this conversation going live. So that, I guess, that gives the background. Is that what you're hoping for?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone needs to know where we're coming from with this. Um, and so let's see here. Can you hear me
I can
properly?
hear you. Yeah, I can hear you
Okay,
well.
great. Okay, great. All right. So, let's just go over this ballot measure. So, we're talking about ballot measure 2 specifically. The discussion is our country has been plagued by confusion caused by commercial corporations using similar names to impersonate us and our unincorporated businesses. They consistently fail to add the word incorporated to their doing business as names. So we propose to end the confusion by omission by adding unincorporated to our business names. And so we want to, the law that we're proposing reads, be it enacted and agreed and resolved throughout our 50 physical defined states of the Union and our similarly held territories and possessions of our federal enclaves and our extraterritorial and municipal holdings throughout the world, that the word unincorporated shall be added to all doing business as names for the American government and all unincorporated businesses that are associated with us in standing under American law effective September 1st, 2026. Now, where do we want to start with this? Because
Yeah, so I had a lot of things going through my head, and some of it was like during the discussion point. But the main concern to me initially, which has been solved in my head, was I noticed first that this law specifically applies to Americans and not to keep our government contractors, our subcontractors, in order. And so my first question and concern was, we've spent a lot of time um, trying to get the corporations into the sea and to stay in their jurisdiction, and most of the laws that we've passed have been passed to protect us and have really been enforceable on the foreign corporations that are trespassing against us. And this was one of the, I think, the first law I can think of that specifically doesn't require anything of the de facto, that it's like it's just us. And so at first my concern was, wait, why are we passing a law on the American public that doesn't give us any inherent ability that we didn't already have, and that only takes away our ability to use our doing business as names without the word unincorporated on our marketing or on our contracts or whatever? Why are we suddenly passing a law to just apply to us Americans? So I called Needy. That was one of the points we had talked about. So Needy, do you want to take away the answer to that question? Is like, why are we passing a law onto the American public that would require this? Why wouldn't we instead pass a law that mandates the de facto to use the word incorporated while they're on our shores? Why wouldn't we do that instead?
so we have a really clear answer for everyone now after 2 hours of going back and forth and back and forth. But what I was trying to express to Hudson was the water isn't supposed to be on the land. Like water jurisdiction, water business, like commerce, commercial business, isn't supposed to be on the land because on the land, we operate in trade. We don't operate in commerce on the land. Commerce is only on the water. Now, most people today don't know this. This is what Blackbeard and his friends were trying to actually express, and they've been popularized in the movies and television shows and whatever as pirates because the corporatocracy always accuses you of doing what they are themselves doing, right? And so they accused Blackbeard and friends as the pirates when if you actually know their stories, um, and we all know, right, Hudson, that everything that we've ever known was a lie.
It's
So
flipped on
the
its
people,
head, upside
yeah,
down.
if they say up, just go down, you know. So if they're calling someone pirates, that means those aren't the pirates, okay? So Pirates of the Caribbean and whatever. Uh, Blackbeard was known to be one of those guys. When I think that when you really get into the details and get to know what actually was going on, Blackbeard would be more like Robin Hood, okay? And all of the ways in which they were managing themselves may or may not have been correct, okay? But the difference was at that time they knew the law. They knew water jurisdiction, air jurisdiction, land jurisdiction law. They knew that when they came to port, they had to declare, whatever products that they were bringing onto the land. And now it had to be declared. You know, when you do declarations at ports, the reason that you're doing the declaration is not because you brought it from America to India, or, you know, Canada to America or something like that, as much as it is that you traveled over the water and you're bringing it into the port from air or water. Because you're bringing it through the airport, or you're bringing it through the water. So when you're bringing something out of your ship, your vessel on the water, or your vessel in the air, then you're declaring it, okay? Whatever that item is. Well, right now, what I was trying to explain to Hudson is, you know, if the Bible is our law book, right, which it is, that's what we go by. It's the 1500s and before. Earlier, Geneva Bible is the Patriot law book, right? So when our forefathers came to America and they established all of this, they did it based on that Bible, just for the record, okay? And so that is what we're always referring back to. Well, everyone knows the parable story about, you know, the great flood and Noah's ark. These are parables. This wasn't actually that the land got flooded. But just think about what I'm saying. When we have commerce on the land, it is actually water jurisdiction on the land everywhere. And they've commercialized all of us by incorporating everyone. And you don't have incorporated entities on the land. You just don't.
Because an
And
incorporated entity is it's a vessel, it's a ship. Um, you added another point that made it a little bit more clear in my mind just now, when you explained that when you're exiting sea jurisdiction onto land jurisdiction, you have to declare the cargo, right? And the reason isn't because it's coming from a different country, but it's because it's coming from a different jurisdiction onto the land jurisdiction. And currently, like you said, we're in a situation where there's so much commerce that has been brought onto the land, which is against the laws of nature even, that we have to, because of this moment of exigency, do all the declaring our cargo that's being brought onto land, and we need to do it so clearly that even our DBAs have it on it, because we're in this moment of exigency, if I'm using that word right, emergency, really, if you want to call it that, because there's so many corporations that are masquerading as normal businesses on our shores, which clearly isn't the case. Does that make sense? Oh, you went quiet. I can't hear you now.
oh, I'm sorry.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'm going to clean that up a little bit more.
Go for it.
So you are inherently unincorporated, and they unlawfully incorporated you. And you never knew that. I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that my given name, or that I, as just a living woman, was an incorporated entity. I didn't know that. Did you know that before you started learning about all of this?
No,
I
I
mean,
did not.
I had no idea. Okay. And had I known that, it might have been interesting to see that. Um, it might have been interesting to know that they had incorporated us, because we might have been rethinking how we were going to operate, and then if we did have an enterprise, we might have rethought some of that, right? But none of us actually know that we're already incorporated just by the birth certificate fraud. So naturally, when you are born, then you are obviously not incorporated. Okay, you came in through nature. You naturally arrived, right? So so when we're saying that we need to um, just articulate clearly, with clarity, to make it perfectly clear to everyone who we are, it's just full disclosure. Because if you're operating your business right now in a time space when every all businesses are commercial in nature, like, really, when you think about, when you talk to people, I mean, I've literally had conversations with other business people And as a business owner, the conversations I'm having are going to be different than if you are an employee at a job. Okay. So people who mostly work as employees at jobs, which this is the other thing I was telling Hudson, I was like, 99% of the population, if not more, really, I would say 99.99% of the population, they are not owners of enterprises. Most of them are all employees at a job. And so they don't really have to address these things as often. But if you're a business owner, then you know that you think you're not dealing in trade. In fact, they make us believe that we're not dealing in trade unless we are operating in international business, which they don't let us know that we are operating in international business between the states on America. They make us believe that that is domestic and it's only international if we are doing business with, say, Canada or Mexico. Do you follow what I mean? Like before you knew what we know now, would you have believed or would you have realized that when you're doing business between North Carolina and Idaho, that that is international business?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known until I realized that we're 50 Republican states, nations unto ourselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
So 90, I mean, well, the entire American population at this red hot moment, most people have no idea that that's what the truth is. Less
Hmm.
than 1% of the population is even slightly aware of this, and even most of them are so corporate minded they can't really. They're constantly glitching back and forth through that.
Yeah. So, kind of a little bit going back to my question then,
Mm-hmm.
the reason that we're trying to pass this law on in a way that applies to the Americans, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, is specifically because the de facto has encroached upon our shores. We need to put them back into the water.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they are obligated to do full disclosure, they're not doing it. And so the reason we're doing it is because even though we can't control their actions, we can control ours to draw way clearer the line between commerce and trade.
Well, we're establishing. First of all, our forefathers never thought that this was going to be something that was necessary um, to do, and because back then everybody knew the ancient laws, right? Which is how they established our Declaration of Independence, and were able to do all these things. They knew what was going on. They knew the law. Right
Yeah,
now, we no one knows about the law. They don't know what's going on, and
yeah,
so because they wouldn't have been able to even usurp us if people had been educated. But the way things were at that time, because it was not the information age, and all the news traveled on horseback. um, it was a lot easier for them to usurp us back in the day, right? But
so
now, going forward, our fiduciary wants to make sure that this cannot happen again. And the only way to really do that is to set a precedent for unincorporated businesses to be clearly um, labeled. And we're dealing with brigands. Okay, they're criminals. We're not dealing with men of honor. If they were men of honor, then they wouldn't create chaos and confusion. But the corporatocracy only operates in chaos and confusion. And living people, we have to operate. We first of all, we only have our word as bond. We only can operate in clarity. We only operate in clarity. We don't even know how to communicate with each other with all of that manipulative chaos and confusion, because we're liquid love and we don't even really know how to think that way. It would have to have been something, like something that we really had to plan and learn and operate in, right?
yeah. So going to my next question, and I'm sorry, I didn't quite give you a heads up, but I have around like maybe 20 questions total that I wrote down that all are
Uh-huh.
connected to our conversation. Um, so I'll try to go through them a little bit more quickly, and maybe I'll combine some of them so that we can get through them all. But
Okay. And I'll keep my answers shorter, but that first question that you asked me, if it was last, it would have made better sense.
I see what you're
Um,
saying. Maybe I had it
now,
inverted.
but it's okay.
Okay, so one of the questions about it was um, whether or not passing this law violates American state nationals' natural right to do whatever we want with our DBAs.
Mm,
Whatever the reason might be, we talked about like maybe it's a marketing concern because they don't want to have to spend the money to rebrand, or maybe they just are OCD and they don't like the word unincorporated, whatever the case may be. Um, we just spent all these years escaping the unnecessary regulations of the de facto. So even though this is a small thing, why are we creating a regulation
mm.
for trade?
Because they aren't operating in trade. If they were operating in trade, then they wouldn't have to deal with this. Like, let's be honest, okay? First of all, anyone who has their business set up that way, there's, I think, a handful of people that are doing it that are actually operating in full on trade. Most people aren't. Most people won't. They're afraid to do it. Most people can't because they're so regulated, they don't know how to do it. I have people here. I mean, when we're at the end of this, we're going to go through the chat, but there's people already in the chat asking how they can do things this way because no one is actually doing it. So, and this is what I kept saying to you that night when we were on the phone. I kept saying to you, you know, this is ridiculous. You have I kept saying I kept saying to Hudson, Hudson, everyone is demanding remedy and at the same time they aren't allowing the remediation. The remedy is to unincorporate. I mean, listen, the answer is the cause is the cure, right? If you want to deregulate, you have to unincorporate in
Yeah.
order to
So
deregulate. But I don't think you even understood me when I said that to you the first.
because this is what I had thought, and this when we were having the conversation, I saw what you were saying about the necessity of using the word unincorporated on our trade names, and I even that's what finally got me to realize that this is a good idea, at least on the international level for all of the American business names and all of the American governmental service providers, because obviously the thing that happened with Hunter recently wouldn't have happened if it had unincorporated as a descriptive as part of the DBA, because he wouldn't have been able to jump jurisdictions with it. It basically
Correct.
locks the business into the land
Land.
jurisdiction, right? Which I love that. And that's what finally got me realizing that that was a good idea for that. But even at that point in our conversation, one of my thought processes, which is one of my questions on my list, was um, just thinking about the difference between a Republican form of government and a Democratic form of government. And obviously, we're in a unique situation where we have 50 states and they're all Republican states. So we're 50 Republican states that are federated, right? But either way, the difference between a democratic government and a republic government is a democracy is the majority rule regardless, right? It's mob rule, like you said. Whereas a Republican form of government says that the majority rules as long as it doesn't interrupt or take away a natural right of one man or one woman, right? So the majority can't ever vote on anything that would deprive anyone of life, ownership of property, or freedom of movement. And so, with that in mind, I was thinking about how our intellectual property rights are property. That it is property. We do own it. Doesn't an American, an ASN, own his DBA? And if he owns his DBA, can't he do with it whatever he wants? Right? Like
Well,
why does he have to start using the word unincorporated on all of his advertisements and everything? Isn't that a law that takes away his natural right to use however he chooses? So
nope.
that was the question. So
Right.
go.
And I kept trying to explain to you, I kept trying to explain to Hudson that on the land and soil, we only have unincorporated businesses. If I mean that's all it should be. It's only unincorporated, number one. And as far as your rights to the name, the art, the whatever, I was telling you, I said that's airy fairy jurisdiction. So we have the land with the air, okay? And we also have the sea with the air, okay? And on the land, the air jurisdiction, like, first of all, well, before all of that, we're alive. This is a jurisdictional situation that people need to comprehend. And I felt like you were mixing up and using the style of government as an excuse when that has absolutely nothing to do with it being Democratic or Republican or whatever. This is about land, air, and water. That's it. This is not about Democrats or Republicans or any of that. Okay? You can't mix up the law of the land, the law of the sea, the law of the air, and not comprehend how this operates. Okay? So when you are alive, we have superior concurrent general jurisdiction, which means that we can do whatever we feel like, and we can freely move in and out of all the realms at any time that we feel like. So we are able to operate on the water, on the land, in the air, in a plane, out in space, in a rocket ship or whatever, okay? If that's even really real. Like, I don't know. But, like, we're able to do all of the things and be and do what we want to in all of the realms, okay? However, most people do not actually know what the law of the land is. They've heard of this law of the land from the corporatocracy, who are liars and bullshitters, okay? And also manipulative, and also um, don't operate in honor, and they're brigands, right? And so, again, we can't control other people, and we also can't control dead corporate fictions, but we can control ourselves, and we are supposed to operate in honor, and we are supposed to operate with full disclosure. And that is what this does. By saying that you're unincorporated, you are giving everyone full disclosure. And why wouldn't you want to give everyone full disclosure? You know,
And
why?
that was the thing that solved the question in my mind, because everything I just
Mhm.
explained just now, like I still think the way I just explained it, my comprehension of it, and the reason the Republican form of government mattered to me was because it mat it, it it answered the question as to whether or not the people even had the authority to pass a law that could potentially take a right from even somebody else. And but then when you explain it in the way of it is a law not regarding not regarding your copyright, not regarding your DBA, it's a law regarding disclosure. Then it clicked. I realized, oh, so the law isn't saying I can't use my DBA however I choose. What it is saying is that if I expect to be protected under American public law, I have to follow the law regarding full disclosure. Specifically, right now, because of the precarious nature of the situation we're in with so many corporations willfully omitting that disclosure.
Right.
So that answered a lot of questions for me. And this is another thing that I think is probably good for us to talk about. You and I agree on this. I'm pretty positive per our other conversation, but I think it's going to be helpful for other people that are having this conversation. Um, I had come to these questions without talking to like other people, and I guess because I hadn't been able to make it onto Honest podcast recently, and I guess there were some people that were saying, "Hey, the Federation doesn't have the authority to do this," or something like that. And I had brought up that question to you, and you chewed me out for it, which was good because I realized it was a mistake. So first off, the Federation is not the ones doing this; it's being laid before the state assemblies, right? The state assemblies are the ones making the decision, and that still
No,
led to my
the
question
people,
as to
the
whether or not they
people
could.
are
But
on the people on the ground, on the soil, are the authority. The authority comes from the soil, from
yeah,
the
and it
people.
requires the 3/4 of the people to vote on it, um,
Right.
which makes
That
sense. So
right, right, right. So it is and I think the other part of it that's important for people to really comprehend about this is that this is lawmaking. It's not legislative action, and it results in public laws which stand above all legislative codes, statutes, regulations, ordinances, or policies And it'll, it'll all of that stuff needs to be brought back into compliance with public law, because right now people just don't even know, um, that they're like, public law. What's a public law versus whatever. And so, and I mean, actually, if is it okay if I go to this chat for just a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
So in the chat, there's a whole lot of conversation right now about God as being the only authority. So let me just clear something up real quick. There was a moment in time when our creator, whatever you call our creator, God, creator, whatever, most popularly known as God, okay? Our creator asked us, wait a minute, did you want me as your king or did you want man as your king? And this dummy who answered the question for all men said, we want man as our king. And so our creator said, okay, so be it, right? Then what do we get? What, King Solomon? So, like, ever since that moment, we've had this issue. So let us not bring that up again. Now we're at a new moment in time where we get to choose again. Do we want man as our king or do we want God as our king? Well, if you actually want to operate with God as your king, as it is bound, it must be unbound. And so, since you have been bound by all the men, then you have to unbind it with man's law. You have to unbind it.
That was another thing that helped me comprehend a lot of what you were talking about when we were on our phone call. You had mentioned that because you had explained that all man-made laws are corrupt and inherently evil, because natural law dictates that if you harm other people, you will naturally endlessly suffer until you stop doing that. That's natural law. There's a lot of natural laws that we need to learn how to live in accordance with, right? Man-made laws are the thing that corrupt nature. And like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the process by which something is bound, so it is unbound. So even though it's annoying to have to be using the word unincorporated on our business names right now,
Mm-hmm.
it is a man-made law that is working backwards away
Mm-hmm.
from the corrupt situation that we have found ourselves in.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
even this law will eventually pass away when everything gets corrected.
Well, there should be no laws. We shouldn't have any laws. Making laws for us to try to stand over anyone else is against God's law. Because, there's even a comment that says something about the only law is do no harm. No, it's not. The law is the law of one. I am you and you are me. So I have to love you as I love myself. But right now, you're standing in a moment of time where people don't even love themselves. You're standing in a moment of time where people don't love themselves and they do cause harm to themselves. They don't even feel like they can look in the mirror and say, I love you to themselves because they think that's ridiculous. And you can't love other people if you don't love yourself. If I have nothing to, give because I don't give to myself first, then I have nothing to give you. It's actually very simple, people. You've got to love and honor yourself so that you can love and honor other people as yourself and do no harm. You're not supposed to do harm to your own self. That is the law. But people don't even believe that they have a creator. Right now, we're standing in a moment of time where the corporatocracy has done such a wonderful job brainwashing and mind controlling and programming people that today, people don't know that mentalism is one of the very first natural laws. And it even says it in all the scriptures. Watch your thoughts. Be careful about what you think. And then even be more cautious about what you speak because your word is bond. Your word is a thing. Once your thoughts are things, right? But
Hmm.
you can change your mind anytime Like people are like, oh, well, there's just, I have no choice. Any of these people that have this habit of saying, well, but I don't really have any choices. Oh, that's because you don't allow yourself some. But your creator gave you free will choice. Nothing's happening to you, everything's happening for you. Your universe is doing nothing but trying to surprise and delight you at every moment. But if you don't care about yourself, then nothing good is going to happen for you. You have to follow the generative principle to care. I can't tell you, Hudson, how many people I speak with daily that just don't care about themselves. They only want to care about you, and they think that's kind and great and nice. And guess what? It's not nice. Kindness isn't the way, forward. It's actually
Well, and
evil.
yeah, and the reason it's evil is because the de facto, I think, actually created the lie. Because if they could get a nation of people that do believe in God, I've met a lot of Christians that think this way.
Yes.
That they get a nation that do believe in God to think that it's somehow higher or holier to self-sacrifice so much that they no longer even care about themselves,
Right.
that they will do whatever, regardless of how horrible it is or regardless of the cost to themselves for
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. Well, then you have a nation of people that could easily be moved to do horrific events or crazy events or even just self-subject themselves to bondage unnecessarily. And
Right.
it's an ideology that people need to comprehend. Like you said, as much as you need to care for other things and other people, you need to care for yourself, and that's important.
Right. Well, they've been made to believe that they're evil if they, want something better. And no, you have to have a standard. Have standards, people. You must have the highest standard because if we're made in the image of our creator, then our creator doesn't want us to destroy ourselves.
Hmm.
We have to operate, and love is the divine solvent of everything. And so you must operate um, in the highest good. How can you say that you want the best for other people, but you'll do that at your detriment if I am you and you are me? And also, how is that any good? Like, even if you think about it, you're not a parent yet, Hudson, but I know that I think you have nephews and nieces, and I think there's a different love, even for nephews and nieces, that's different from just, other people. I remember when my first nephew was born, how it made me feel, how it changed me, and then when we had our own babies, how it changed us again, you know, and you want to have everything, you want to give everything to this new life. And I told you one time, I said, you guys are our sons and daughters, Hudson. We should be growing and developing our sons and daughters with love. We should be growing them to want everything and have anything and know that they can have everything. We shouldn't be training them to believe that they're supposed to sacrifice themselves or sacrifice anything at all uh, for what that goes against the universal law of expansion. We are here to expand. This is an expanding universe. Whatever I have just said or you have just said to anybody who, if they've never heard it before, it just expanded. For their world just expanded. Their universe just expanded, right? So once you know it, once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. It's not a contracting universe. It's only expanding. Try to forget what I just said. Try to just not know it anymore. That's like if you know how to read, try to not read. It's kind of an impossible thing now. Now that you know how to read,
What's the old quote? The mind once stretched by a new idea can never return to its original dimensions, and it's true.
correct. And this whole thing is that's why they say that it's all mentalism.
Hmm.
You can't make physical quantum leaps, but you can make mental quantum leaps because I could just decide today, right now, I will no longer allow myself to operate in chaos and confusion. I will only operate in clarity. And going forward, I no longer allow myself to do that. And you know what? I did do that when we when we lost a child, I could have lost myself in grief, I could have lost myself in depression, I could have lost myself in hate and anger and frustration and all kinds of things. And I'm not saying I didn't feel any of those things, I'm just saying I had to hurry. I came out of it pretty quick and decided that that wasn't going to be my future, because I still had two more babies, I still had more life to live, I still had more people that needed me. And so I could have chose that, but I didn't. I decided no, that's it. You know what? I will no longer operate in chaos or confusion, and I rebuke evil, and I will never operate in my opinion again. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I will not speak. I will not say anything until I know. I will not take action until I know. If I don't know that I'm at the edge of a cliff or I'm not sure where I'm at, I'm going to be quiet and stop and wait and see, right? And
Yeah.
so that happened for me at a much earlier age than maybe someone else. Everyone has been, no one has arrived here lightly, right? Every one of us, like, I think that I commend you. You know, you're very young compared to most of the people that are in this movement. You're like really more than half of the age of most of the people who are aware of this. And what an amazing gift that is for us to know that the future, you know, people have someone like you who is fully aware of what's going on. What That's awesome. And you know what? Ever since I met you, I've been praising that you know, I've been praising you and praising the fact that we have someone like your parents who did what they did and brought you up the way that they did and allowed you the space to do what you're doing. And since then, I have started only to attract more young people like you into my life. And it's been amazing. And it's also been a relief. I'll tell you that. It's been a relief.
Well, thanks, Needy. Yeah, that's a compliment. I appreciate that. So I actually wrote a little bit more just
Mm-hmm.
about this public law, and it was kind of like a question and answer to my own question based off of what we had talked about. And I was just going to read it real quick, and then you tell me like if it needs tweaked or if there's a correction to be made in it, right?
Sure. Yep.
So, because my follow-up question was that if do the people even have the authority to pass this law under a Republican form of government? The majority can't take any rights away from one man, um, or one woman, even if they agree. And so, if there was a man that wanted to sell apples without specifying, would he have the right to? So the question is it a right to use your DBA however you choose? Yes. Does this law change that? No. Does
Right.
this law require you as an American state national to use the word unincorporated on all your DBAs, advertisements, contracts, etc.? Only if you want the protection under the public law of the United States of America,
Which
right?
is
And
in
then
the land, which is operating on land jurisdiction
on land jurisdiction,
and not
exactly.
the water. Yeah.
Yep. And then the question is, why would we need to make this law instead of just making it a notice and then allowing people to do any allowing people to do it if they choose to? Well, because a measure this drastic will force commerce back into the water where they belong, and it will force people who are trying to play the fence to pick a side, right? It'll make it so that
That's
the
right.
line is drawn more clearly, and
In
it'll
the
make it so
sand.
that Americans have to operate unincorporated if we choose to operate.
It is so good because what this law does is it creates a slope back into the water so that the elevation of the land creates a really nice slope to make it clean and clear that the water has to stay. This is Noah's Ark. This is Noah's Ark. For everyone out there, I mean, I'm so sick and tired, frankly, Hudson, of hearing everyone say, when are we going to get remedy? When are we going to have bloody blah? Oh, we need God to fix this. No, we don't. God, you know, your creator doesn't help you unless you help yourself. And your creator gave you the free will to do that and even choose against him. Him, her, whatever. We say him because guess what? Proper English, him, he means anybody, them. We don't need to say them, okay? This is also lies and bullshit. I'm so sick of the lies, the corporate lies. These corporate you know, people call it play on words or whatever, you know. This semantic deceit is the great fraud. And the reason that, you know, we're interested in, or we should be interested, if you want to deregulate, if you don't want to follow the corporate overreach, you have to unincorporate. Anybody out there who's actually a business owner, because the only people who are pushing against this, Hudson, are people who don't actually run businesses right now. And me, you had an honest conversation about that too. That you haven't been running your own business. You don't know what that requires. You haven't had to go head on with the regulators yourself, right? And so you won't know what you're facing because you haven't had to do it yet. But I have, right? And anybody who's been running a business who has had to deal with the regulators, they most of the time buckle out of fear, frankly, because they don't comprehend that when the de facto solicits you for business and the way that they come and solicit you, oh, it is so unfriendly. Their solicitations sound more like, I heard that you're selling raw milk here. I need to come in and inspect your facility. You're going to have to let me in. And they do this with a gun on their hip. And they've done that to me. And when they did, I was like, no, I don't. No, thank you. I didn't pull a gun on them. I didn't raise my hands at them. I didn't raise any of my arms at them. I just, stood on my word. No. Let your no be your no and your yes be your yes. And I made it very plain and clear that no, I will not. And then I said, whatever it is that you are trying to say to me, I don't understand any words coming out of your mouth. You're going to need to put that in writing for me. And what these criminals can't do is put it in writing. And they won't. They'll never come back to put it in writing. So they're soliciting you for business. I'm demanding they solicit me in writing. They can't, because guess what? That's evidence of the crime. Because it is a crime that they are imposing upon you. And so they can't. But if you bend the knee in that moment, because it's too hard to stand up and play the staring game with them outside in the 100-degree weather while they don't leave your property for over an hour, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They did it to me. It's an intimidation tactic. They came into my place of business and sat down and made themselves comfortable and weren't trying to leave. And said, no. I said, when are you leaving? They said, well, we're going to need to inspect you. I said, no, you're not. And we just had a face off there until they finally, because, at 5 o'clock, they're going to leave because they want to punch out at 5, right? And so if you got to wait all day, you might have to wait until 5 o'clock before they vacate. But they kept coming.
So
This is what it looks
so
like
this
when they
this
solicit
actually
me.
this actually leads to one of my other questions that I asked that you answered a good question to, that kind of made a good point. But
Mm-hmm.
would passing this law make it so that in that situation, if you didn't have the word unincorporated on your sign out there or
Mm-hmm.
on your entryway, that they could have forcibly solicited? And that's
I
the
mean,
question. And you said, and one of the things that you had mentioned
mm-hmm.
was, well, if you get them to acknowledge one of our public laws, good
Mm-hmm.
job, including this one. But
Right.
it still could be a concern for some people. So I'm
Nope.
not sure if you want to address
If
that.
they actually acknowledged the fact that I'm unincorporated, boom, I got them. I got them. But they don't. They literally ignore all the laws because they're criminals. they're criminals. So, I have this, Diane and friends over here. She's talking about, what about a farm? How would one stay unincorporated as a farm when just beginning to share the food harvest meat, blah, blah, blah. What do you mean? How? How would you stay? How about, is your farm, let's call your farm ABC Farm. Did you go and incorporate it? Did you go make it a PMA? Did you go make it a nonprofit? Did you go make it an LLC or whatever, all the 100 different things? I'm not promoting PMAs, y'all. PMAs are these, private membership agreements. That is corporate. It is incorporated. For you to be unincorporated, you will just say that you are Diane and Friends Farm, you know, and owned by Diane, whatever your family name is, you know, but your DBA is Diane and Friends or whatever it is, right? It could be ABC Farm. It could be whatever, back to basics or something, right? Whatever you call it. That, if you never register the business, registration is what incorporates it, okay? We don't register things on the land. We record things. We record life events. We don't register things. When you register something, then you just gave your company, your business, your enterprise, your, sweat equity, everything. You gave it to somebody. So if you don't want to give it to somebody, then don't. But you will be solicited. They are going to come and try to, presume upon you. They try to come and tell you what you're doing. And they do it real ugly. They come out and they're just like, oh, you're doing blah, 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 whatever it is. Because you made an airy fairy air jurisdiction website, right? And they're going to print out the website and bring it to you. That's what they did with me. Oh, your website says that you're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So, what are you saying?
So, so I have a follow-up question that it kind of goes along the same things. Um, where in this situation, she just commented again. She said no incorporation, family food was her comment, and um, it's interesting that she points out that it's not incorporated. She didn't go and register it yet. But presumably right now, if she has a sign outside that says what it is, presumably right now she might not have the word unincorporated on it,
Well,
right?
she's just raising farm food for her family, is what I got out of this. So you can
Yeah,
clarify for us, Diana and friends, like, if you're just doing something for yourself, you're not even in business. So I don't know why you don't need to say anything. You don't need to do
yeah.
anything.
But let's assume if let the same situation, but they are
Mm-hmm.
divvying out food for other people and they're trading, right? Whatever the deal is, and
Right.
they have a sign out front that doesn't have the word unincorporated. Currently, if
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't registered it, she is unincorporated and she's
Right.
protected under American common law or
That's right.
American public law.
Right.
Um, Passing this law will change that to now she
Mm-hmm.
has to have the word unincorporated, and if she doesn't, then it can be presumed she is incorporated. Is that correct?
Right. Because the criminals presume upon you. And so, and we operate with full disclosure. And so, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want somebody telling me what I got to say or do. Okay, well, when you have a flood on the land and you want to let people know, I'm not playing in the water, then you need to make it plain and let them know. And also, what's the big deal here? What is the big deal? I said this to you too. I said, what is the big deal? And Hudson said, well, the cost of rebranding. Um, Guess what? I run a business, I own a business, and if all I got to do is redo my logo and everything that's already designed and just put unink in a little dot on there somewhere, it is cheaper than the regulatory crap I got to deal with and all the taxation. So if you're incorporated, you got to do taxes. You got to do all of their things because that's how the water works, guys. If you don't want to deal with water jurisdiction, you better make sure you're on the land and soil. On the land, we don't do all that. We don't operate in that same way with the taxes and all of that stuff. We don't do that.
Okay, so
But
I had another question come to mind.
yeah.
Um, that might make it clearer too, and I'm honestly curious. It's coming in real time here. Um,
Mhm.
does this law passing it essentially surrender everything that isn't labeled unincorporated or that doesn't get unincorporated? For instance, our credential cards. Our credential cards currently have for me, I'm Idahoan. Mine says the Idaho Assembly, which this makes it so that the Idaho Assembly is a DBA that will now have to say the Idaho Assembly unincorporated.
Right.
Does that make it so that my credential card is no longer authoritative and I have to get a new credential card?
Well, at this red hot moment, most places aren't even recognizing them anyway. And if I got to pay another $50 to get a one that's going to work, then I'm sorry, that's just not worth me having an argument about. It's just not.
And so
Anything
that's the thing is,
anything that's going to give me more authority. Listen, when we started this whole operation, it's all been a learning experience and a testing experience. And the reason that we create the reason there's a need to create this public law is because our fiduciary is stuck trying to protect and defend the people who demand remedy but don't want to voice themselves what it is that they want. How do you expect someone like the fiduciary to protect and defend you or your government to protect and defend you if you don't use your voice? Because the American government does not presume upon the people. It is given its authority by the people. And when the Federation is saying, I need this law to be passed for me to be able to, you know, do this work for you, because the Federation works for the people, then the people better make a decision. Oh, okay, these people are, the reason it's not working is because they're confused. They don't know who is unincorporated versus who's unincorporated, incorporated versus unincorporated. They don't get it. They don't understand. Okay, let's make it clear. Let's stop the confusion.
and that just requires a significant amount of labeling on our part because, like, if you think about it like this, and this is the way I had been thinking about it. If this section over here is everything that exists naturally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this section over here is everything that is incorporated,
Mm-hmm.
but they dropped the ink off of all their labels, so it looks like it's part of this same group. So it's all mixed together and nobody knows what's incorporated and what's not.
Right.
The default technically is we presume it's not incorporated unless it is. That's the default. But because of how much they've been spinning, all their webs, um, Anna's creating a situation where now we have to label everything unincorporated,
Mm-hmm.
which will make it so that those ones that are incorporated are incapable of making it look like they're mixed in the whole crew and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
And
And that
praise God that we're realizing this right now when we are not even 10,000, 100,000 versus the millions and millions of them. Millions and millions of them. And there's hardly any of us. Hardly any of us compared to the millions and millions of them. And so we are more of us, meaning like there's more people enslaved than not. However, the majority of the people out there have no idea that they're slaves. And so the ones of us that are waking up, have woken up, have been awake for a while, we are creating a house of bricks, not of sand, right? Well, in order to do that, we're going to have to sometimes take down the wall and start over a little bit. But what is the difference between the living people learning how to walk on and stand on the land versus a baby trying to, crawl and then walk? What's the difference?
Not a lot.
Right. And also, what is there to be upset about? Nothing. There's nothing to be upset about. Also, the little bit of adjustment that we have to make is not a lot. And guess what? There are no real unincorporated businesses out there. There's enough on a couple of hands to count on right now because no one even knew what was going on. We're just figuring it out, you know? I mean, the minute that I realized that the only reason to incorporate was for bankruptcy protection, which I never even thought of one time, I had absolutely no problem putting unincorporated. I did that back whenever it was. Well, as soon as I learned that, I added it. But you know what? I didn't change a single one of my logos. But if you go to my website on my legal description, I wrote that we're unincorporated now. But it's interesting. I even wrote on here, here's my IRS ID that's been dissolved. We no longer participate in the corporatocracy because we were incorporated. Just like everybody. This is the moment of duality. And just, Diana, I just want you to know if you're growing food and giving it away to people for free, you're not running a business. This isn't about you. The first thing that we need to do is make everyone comprehend what business is. What is business? It is when you're doing an energy exchange with somebody. Okay. And yeah, you could be doing an energy exchange with your family for, I'm going to give you food and you're going to come clean my house, or you're going to mow my lawn, or you're going to carry my kids to school, or you're going to babysit, or whatever. Right. But for this moment, we're talking about energy exchange in the form of some type of currency, some type of monetary exchange. All right. And this is a big deal for people who are business owners who also want to declare. You know, the number one reason that I have heard from people of why they don't want to unincorporate their business, Hudson? Because they would have to make an explanation to all their employees about what is going on. That's harder for them. I'd be like, hey, employees, do you guys no longer want to be participating in tax theft? And I would like to know how many of my employees would say, what? No, I must participate in tax theft. I need you to take taxes out of my pay. Are you going to argue with your current employer, Hudson, if they told you one day, hey guys, we're thinking about unincorporating our, business, which means that you will no longer be participating in the tax program if you work here? What would your response be to that?
I'd help them do it. I'd help them unincorporate.
Right. But I mean, the number one reason that people say they don't want to unincorporate their business is because, oh, those I have people that work for me and they, I don't know if they're going to want to go along with this. They're going to think I'm crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, they're going to think you're crazy because you're trying to pay them more money so that you don't have to deal with taxes. What are you talking about? I think that anybody who doesn't run a business, by the way, they don't really know how much money your business owner has to pay to hire you to the tax police. It's called unemployment taxes. Their unemployment tax bill is redonkulous. And if they didn't have to pay that, they could just pay you more money. Or keep the money and let you keep your taxes at the same time and never and if you get more and they do too.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely sold me on like why we need to unincorporate. And I think that a lot of people are on the same page as that already, except the thing that was confusing in my mind, and I think is maybe confusing in a lot of people's minds, is that unincorporation is the default. And this law seems to make it now not the default. As if the default now is incorporated.
Well,
And
the
that was
default right now is non-disclosure,
yeah.
and what we want is disclosure. And so we're going to lead by example. How about that? Does that sound better? How about
Hmm.
leading by example?
And that's the point is if we just do this as a notice that says, hey, everybody, let's start using the word unincorporated, there's still going to be enough American businesses that don't do it just because they don't want to or for whatever reason that makes it so that the de facto can still just hide behind the bushes.
Well,
Whereas if
and
we make it like it's
also,
a must thing, well, then it makes it so that no business that is incorporated can confuse the American public.
but
They
more
literally
than
can't.
that, but more than that, the ones that are operating unincorporated but not writing unincorporated are going to be mad when they want protection because they think they're unincorporated, but they didn't ever really give full disclosure they were unincorporated. So, look, it's real simple. If you want the benefit of being unincorporated, you better say it. And if you don't want the benefit of it, then it doesn't matter anyway, right? Because we have superior, concurrent, general jurisdiction in all the realms. We can do whatever we want. There's nothing stopping us from operating in commerce, contracting, or anything else. But why are you or anybody, I'm not saying you, Hudson, but like
Yeah, no,
anybody,
go for it. Yeah.
why would anyone want to allow the water jurisdiction to bring its chaos and murder and mayhem onto the land and soil? Because anytime that the ships come to shore, they're all here only for liberty, and we all know how the liberty towns are when the ships come in. Those men are doing what? What are they doing when they come out for liberty? They're pretty rough and rugged, right? They're just been on the sea and now they're so just happy to be on the land, and what they're the way that they behave is not really
Well, and that was
appropriate.
the concern. That was the concern that has been hard for me to kind of grasp, and even now some of it's still a little bit not super clear in my head. Is I agree with everything you're saying about wanting the commerce to stay in the sea and wanting us to be able to operate outside of it. And because I want that so bad, it is initially alarming to me to suggest that now everything I do is going to default be commerce unless I say unincorporated. When before
It's
it was the
not.
default was
It's not.
everything.
It's not going to be that just because you didn't say it, but if you want enforcement to support you, you better say it.
Okay, so it's about the enforcement then. So then here's the follow-up question. Let's say obviously you're right. If you're running like a full-on business and you're having a lot of activity in and out, you're gonna want to do this 100%. If it's a small thing, like let's say I just have a little side hustle where I clean windows once every couple weeks, um, and I'm not really doing any advertisements. I don't have a sign anywhere. I'm just doing windows for some friends and family, other people I know, and I'm just cleaning their windows and they're paying me cash. If
Okay,
that's if
stop.
that's found out and somebody,
Can I stop you right there? Because
yeah,
they're also saying no, not for free for cash. Okay, let me just talk about cash. Let's just talk about this. So you're doing a side hustle, what we call under the table, meaning you're doing a little bit of something under the table just for extra money. Okay, when you're a cashless society, then you don't have cash to do that. Okay, which is where they're going with everything. Let's just keep that in mind as well, okay? Now, we don't want them to allow us to have a cashless society for that reason because it's harder for them to track and trace cash. Now, Diana, currently we don't have no real cash. So unless you're doing it for silver and gold, it's not even for real money. That's a different conversation. We could have a whole nother show for that. So I just want to say that when you're running a business and you're using something that we're going to call money, okay, as an energy exchange, the reason you do that is you're just keeping track of, you know, some energy that you gave them to wash their windows, and they gave you some energy that they earned for doing something else that you didn't want because you don't want whatever it is that they're doing, right? Or you don't need whatever their service is, or you don't want whatever product they have. So the only way for you guys to have an energy exchange is through something called money, or, maybe you're keeping a ledger. So I'll give you, like, I do a lot of barter because people are hungry and they need food, right? And I barter with other people who have something that I need on a regular basis. For example, my chiropractor. I get medical and we barter for food. And, I barter with him for his care for my family for food. Okay. And we've also given ourselves a limit. Like, we know how we're managing it, right? There's a comprehension there. Anybody who's doing anything outside of that out there in the world, whether you're doing something under the table or if you're running a farm or something that's a cash only business, they still try to come for you. I'm talking about on scale. Farms definitely attract the regulators, okay? And you can get away with some of that stuff for so much time. But first of all, what I happen to know for a fact is there aren't very many family farms. There's a bunch of homesteads because anybody, do you know that you can't buy more than 20 acres of land on a loan on anywhere on America? Do you know that? You can't do it. Unless you have cash or you inherited the land, you can't get more than 20 acres on a loan. You can't. The only other way to get it is if you do a farm grant loan program where they mandatorily require you to grow soybeans, corn, or some of their GMO crap. And if you do anything else besides follow their little rules, you can't have that land. So unless you negotiate land that you are leasing from somebody that's not buying it, if you don't have, you can't just go get a mortgage for more than 20 acres. And 20 acres is not a farm. Let me just get this through everybody's head. A farm is actually to do like real farming, meaning full-time farming for you to run a full-time business for your family, is more than 20 acres, okay? It's probably going to be a good 200 acres if you, depending on what you're doing. Now, is it possible for you to make 1 acre profitable? Yes. There's gangster gardening and all this kind of stuff that people do, and you can go vertical and you can do all this stuff, okay? But if you're regeneratively farming, you are not doing any of that. And when you're going vertical, you're also not honoring the soil. There's not livestock involved. You can't do that on 1 acre, okay? I can do a whole show on farming alone, but the bottom line for this discussion right now is anybody who's running a farm business, you can't buy land. You can't buy more than 20 acres of land at all unless you have straight cash right now. So there are not a lot of American farmers. There's a lot of American homesteaders, which is good. We're not against that. We're in support of it. Because the more people that are feeding themselves and their, you know, 15, 20, 30 families around them, great.
So going back a little bit to um, to my question of you said they will still try to regulate it even if it's just like a little operation with just a few people, and that's
Hmm.
true. Before, like
Hmm.
currently, before this law
Hmm.
passes, I
Hmm.
know that if a de facto agent comes and tries to approach me for trading something with my brother or
Hmm.
doing windows, I can currently pull out my certificate of assumed name, my 928s. Idaho, we even created an agent questionnaire where they have to disclose what they're trying to do before I'm even willing to talk to them. And I know how to use my paperwork, right?
Hmm.
Um, so before, the whole concept was if an agent came to me and tried to do something like that, I could turn it back on them and say, where's the contract?
Hmm.
I have no contract with you. Where's the contract? Does this law make it so now it turns back on me where I have to prove myself
Nope.
rather than
We
them having to prove theirs?
no. They still. We're still always as king asking. I don't answer questions. That's why I say I don't understand the words coming out of your mouth. Put it in writing. I don't entertain solicitors. You just have to keep saying, I don't entertain solicitors. I don't
So,
understand the
so then,
words coming out of your mouth.
but if I, let's say in my example of like my window cleaning where
Mhm.
I don't have a contract with anybody that shows I was doing window cleaning. I don't have a sign. Maybe I do have one sticker on my car that says, "Hey, you need window cleaning, call here," right? But it doesn't say incorporate unincorporated on it. Does that give the de facto authority to trespass against me? Because
No,
it
put it
doesn't say
on, connect it
unincorporated
to
on
your
it.
website. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Here's something. You said something to me that day about your logo. I don't have unincorporated on my logo and I'm not changing it and I don't have to. Because
Hmm.
when you see my logo, all it does is match my website. Okay, here, let me just screen share.
Yeah,
Let me see.
I was gonna screen share on mine real quick and just and ask you.
Yeah,
Um,
let me show you something. Hold on. Let me can y'all see this? Okay, yeah, you can. Okay, good. Hold on. Let me
and just so you
screen
know,
share.
time wise, it'd be great if we could wrap up in the next like 15 minutes ish.
Yes, yeah, we need to wrap up. Okay, see, this is my website. Okay, and when you come here, then when you go down to the bottom, see, here's my logo up here. My logo. When you go down to my logo does not look or say anything incorporated, unincorporated, nothing. Okay, but when you come down to my legal, then in my legal description, it says that, buyer beware and be sure to undertake your own due diligence. We do not, and it says what we do and what we don't do, but we don't do business with anyone who operates with litigious recourse. And it means if you want to sue us, we do not do business with you. Our IRS, whatever has been dissolved, we no longer participate in the corporatocracy. Okay. And then we go through the fact that we're a private membership community for those of mankind. And, we're using a law of this law, but at the bottom here, I thought we said unincorporated. Oh, maybe I need to change that on here. I have it on somewhere else. Maybe it's on this other.
No, you're good. So then that follows up my question though. Does
Mm-hmm.
this unincorporated word, per the law, the way I'm reading it at least, it suggests you have to have unincorporated at the top there in your logo.
Mm,
Since your logo contains your DBA, that's at least the
mm,
way I was comprehending it being written, and that was the concern for me. If it requires just disclosure, like on my yeah, for instance, can I screen share real quick?
yeah, I think you can.
Well, let's see, share screen,
It should let you. Hmm.
share this one. Okay, can you see my
Hold on. Let me
screen?
see. Let me just see. I'm also trying to read the law.
You should be able to see my screen. I'm gonna drag a thing over here.
It says
Um,
that it should be added to the doing business
this
name.
is a this is one of my websites. It's the Hudson Journal, right? This is literally
I
just a
don't
place
see it.
I
Hold
write.
on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, there.
This is just a place I write articles and stuff.
Uh
And
huh.
up here in the top left, it has my DBA with the copyright on there. And in the middle here, it says Hudson Journal a lot of places, right? If I scroll down to the bottom, I do have that I'm protecting my freedom of speech, blah blah blah. The information is copyright protected. I'm reserving all the rights, a lot of stuff like that. I could easily add something to this that says this is unincorporated. The question is, and in my example, do I have to put unincorporated every spot the Hudson Journal pops up? So right here, right there, um, do I have to do that? And if so, again, in my instance, it's not that big of a
Oh,
deal. This is a very simple website where I'm just posting my articles and everything like that. The question is everywhere it's visible have to say unincorporated? And if so, does
mm-mm.
that change what we're voting on or not? Does that are they aware of that? Are they aware that that's what we're voting on?
Not according to what it says right here. It says that you want to put the word unincorporated shall be added to all doing business as names. It
All right.
doesn't say anything about like redoing all your logos and stuff.
So then that's the question is what is a doing business as name then? Because
That's
it's
the
like and
name.
oh
That's
and that
your
was
Hudson. That's your Hudson. What you call it? Let's go. Oh, you removed it.
oh sorry, I can share it again.
Yeah.
There's this, share that. Need to pull it up.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So I think it should just say the Hudson Journal unincorporated. Like you can keep your copyright symbol right there, and then also equally as big, just write unink,
hmm
unincorporated. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and again, my this is easy for me to do in this instance because this is just for my like again, I just post articles, things that I write. That's why it's
Right.
called the Hudson Journal. It's the things that I write. That's easy enough for somebody like me. But in your instance, where you have a logo, like what if this didn't say Hudson Journal, but Hudson Journal was wrapped in this symbol or whatever? Is that then suddenly a logo that contains my doing business as name? And then does it have to have unincorporated worked into there? And then the other
No,
question,
it didn't say that. It says that it needs to be in the name. So look, people have these names that they have registered. We want the name recorded, right? You want to publish the name, right? So
hmm
just like you go on your land recording office and you publish your name, right? You publish the name of the business and you just put unincorporated. And so it doesn't say anywhere on here that you got to redo logos and blah 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 blah. It just says that it should be added to all the business names. And I'm sure that means on your paperwork where you're
hmm
doing it. And you would want to make sure if you have a contract that you do it on your contracts, right? Like
yeah.
my contract is on my website. And I explain that to them, like how that's contract, you
Well, and
know.
that makes perfect sense, and I like the idea of including in all the descriptions and all the disclaimers and everything
Mhm,
requiring full disclosure. The thing that had confused me is specifically that, like, if it's all doing business as names, then is
right.
it everywhere your name appears, including if your name appears within your logo?
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I was curious about is if you pull the wording up again, it says associated with us. And then it's like, okay, this is being passed by associated with us, blah blah, unincorporated. Similarly held data unincorporated shall be added to all doing business names of our American government and all unincorporated businesses that are associated with us and standing under American law.
So that
So
would be like the bank, like Global Family Bank Incorporated.
it's an American
Business,
business, yeah.
that's a business that's associated with us.
So that's the other question. So is
Hmm.
my Hudson Journal associated with us as Americans? It's
No,
associated with
because
me.
it's
I'm
not
an
a government.
American. That's
Well,
things
but
I'm
you're
an
not,
American.
but it's not a government business. Like the business of government would be the subcontractor bank providing the remedy.
Okay, so us in this is American state citizens, not American state nationals.
Right. Because it's about the business.
Because that completely changes it for me. And then that, if that's the case, if the us in this is talking about American state citizens and therefore everything that's considered an American associated company, meaning associated with the American government in
Government,
any
right.
way, then
Right.
suddenly that completely changes my perspective of the whole thing. Like it
Well,
flips it.
oh my God. Well, think about this. Right now, the corporatocracy is using the United States of America Incorporated.
Hmm.
But they don't use incorporated so people know that it's incorporated. They don't put incorporated out there.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the law is if that's what it's doing, then it makes it
Mm-hmm.
so that like you're right, the banking situation it's associated with the American government
Mm-hmm.
literally has to have unincorporated everywhere it pops up in the name
Right.
and the logo, like everywhere. It's got to be that.
Because it's a
That way they
government
literally,
service. If it's a government service provider, or the government itself, and they don't let you know that they're unincorporated, then they're incorporated.
yeah, no, I agree. And that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me if it's a business that especially that's associated with the government and that's
Mm-hmm.
doing things internationally like that,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
clocks 100%.
Right. Good. Yes, that's important because that's the biggest number one reason to do this was to a keep it so that what happened with global can never happen again, and also these people can stop pretending like they're Americans with the U.S. corporation, because they are incorporated. They're just not telling anybody that they are.
Hmm. You have another question from Diana Friends again.
Oh,
It says, so on a farm, unincorporated would just be on the sign out front on what is our property? And the answer to that's
mm-hmm.
yes, you would want to put unincorporated on the sign, really anywhere where you're going to be doing major amounts of marketing because that will protect you, right?
Right.
And it
And
would
it's full
also,
disclosure. You know what? It'll attract business, because those of us who want to
if I see an
support,
unincorporated sign, yeah, I'm going to use their business.
I mean, if I see an unincorporated sign, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy something, whatever is there, anything, just to support them, because they're unincorporated. I want to do anything. You know why I want to get unincorporated food? Is because if you're incorporated, you got to wash it in bleach before you can sell it, because you got to follow the regulations. You can't sell dirty eggs or rinsed off eggs. You have to, or wiped off eggs. You have to sell eggs that are washed in chlorine, bleach water. If you're at a farmer's market and selling eggs right now, you have to meet USDA code, which requires you to wash all your produce, all your eggs, all everything in chlorinated water, 100%. And if people don't know that, and you're going to a farmer's market thinking you're supporting local farmers, and so therefore your food is cleaner and better, it's not, because they washed it in bleach. And they did that because they had to come to market.
Yeah.
Unless
Well,
you
Nidhi,
switch it up.
this was good. I not only like again the comprehension of the law that's being considered.
Mm-hmm.
It, I I still have a lot of my questions and thoughts in the way that I was thinking about them, but I at least have an answer to them in that, if this is being passed specifically for that reason, I can see how it's not a matter of how I can use my copyright. It's just a matter of how I disclose it, and that's important. And then additionally, this last thing we discovered is this law might only be being applied per how it's worded to any business that's associated with us, the us being the American government in any way, in which case that changes things. And so I don't know, maybe that's a question for Anna at some point too, is whether that us is intended to say us as just every American or us as in state citizens, American state citizens.
Well, I I think she made that plain and clear. I find it to be clear. If you don't find it to be clear, then certainly, ask. But I think it says it pretty clearly. I don't know. Am I being
No, I
see
think I mean
it
I think you're
says
right. Again, be it
it
enacted,
says
blah blah blah,
it says
through all the
it
physically
says the unincorporated shall be added to all doing business names of our American government, and all unincorporated businesses that are associated with us, meaning the American government,
and
and
standing under
standing
American
under
law.
American law. So anybody who wants to stand under American law is going to want to unincorporate. Otherwise, you're not operating under American law. You're operating under the water
Mhm.
jurisdiction.
Well, and
So,
specifically using the word unincorporated and all the doing business as names too? That's the question.
But it says that if you want to stand under American law, this is what you got to do. If you want to, but I mean the part about the businesses is real clear. Let's read it again. Be it enacted and agreed and resolved throughout our 50 physical defined states of the Union and our similarly held territories and possessions, our federal enclaves, and our extraterritorial and municipal holdings throughout the world, that the word unincorporated shall be added to all doing business as names of our American government and all unincorporated businesses that are associated with us, meaning the American government, and standing under American law, effective, if anything, I got to do that with bucolic, that we created the bucolic.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's interesting because it says doing business as names associated, oh yeah, of our American government, which means our is who? The American people, our
yeah,
American government,
right, our
and
American
associated with
government.
us is would still be American people, right?
Right. And all our unincorporated businesses. But the unincorporated businesses that I think that she's thinking about is who she as the federation has to deal with. Like she's chartering businesses like the bank, global, like she chartered that bank, unincorporated bank, right? So if she's chartering it, if she would have said Global Family Bank Unincorporated, they couldn't have usurped her the way that they did and mirrored her. You
Hmm.
can't mirror that if it's part of the name.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So
Okay.
if we don't want to be mirrored, which mostly the mirroring fraud is happening to them. It's not really happening to us. It's happening to all our government entities. It's happening to, our city or state or I mean not city, but our town, our county, our nation, right? Our nation state.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we want to make sure are clearly stated as unincorporated. And I like this last question too. So the embosser stamp for the assemblies definitely should say unincorporated. Yeah, they'll have to invest in that too. And again, there's only one stamp or a couple of stamps. I mean whatever it is, it's less than $10,000 investment. It's less than 5,000.
Hmm.
You know, like if every recorder just gets a new embosser, it's not a big deal. It's financially not a really big deal.
I was going to say, do we have to change our seals and everything? That's a question that was brought up too,
Right.
I know, but
We do. We do. We should want to do that because we don't want them because that's how they're mirroring us, right?
hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Needy, this was great. I really appreciate it. I feel like some questions got answered in my head, and I hope that some other people gained from this as well. And if nothing else, it helps inform Americans more about this discussion before, a lot of people vote on it. So that's going to be good.
Yeah, I really hope it helps a lot of people. And thank you so much for making the time to join me, Hudson. I'm really glad that you called me because, feel free to always do that. No one should feel like we can't have these conversations. I know that evening you kept apologizing to me. Hudson kept saying, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know why I can't seem to see this. And I was, it was an eye-opening thing for me too that you were seeing it that way. I was like, because I told Hudson, I go, Hudson, you're one of the smartest people I know, and you do such a wonderful job creating a lot of educational videos for everyone, and for all the other education that you've already put out there. If you can't get this, if you can't comprehend it, how are we going to get everybody else to comprehend it? Because you're picking it up so quickly that you're able to create such fantastic educational material behind it. So I really appreciated your tenacity and your patience to keep digging and keep asking over and over. I mean, it took us 2 hours, but if you're not cool with it, if you can't see it, it wasn't that um weren't, you were just like, I still, and I would say, okay, let me try to say it this way. Okay,
And
let
you
me
did,
try
and
to
it
say
did
it.
provide a lot of answers that I hadn't been able to get before. So I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I mean, I think I answered your same question like 50 times, as many different ways as I could possibly think of.
Hmm.
And it was a good thing for both of us because we got to get to the bottom of it. It's about full disclosure.
Yeah.
That's really all this is about, y'all. So, with that, thank you so much for joining us for this special episode. I'm going to go back on my mic. I've been taking a hiatus. I need to recover fully, and so that's why I have taken this break. Otherwise, I actually was going to take a short summer break, but I am taking a longer break just because I need to take care of myself and I want to be able to continue to give forward. So, unless there's some other special edition that we need to do, I'm not planning on resuming the podcast until probably October 1st. And so, after that, I'll be coming back strong. And I appreciate everyone's grace in allowing me time to heal and recover. And I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your summer. And Hudson, thanks again. And I will talk to you real soon.